At long last, we conclude our AFC September World Cup qualifying preview series with Group C. Eerily similar to what we saw in 2022. But here we are, folks. We're back, not just for the same group, but for more Asian footy content on Deadball TV. And if you like videos covering Asian football here on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe. Also, if you guys could smash the like button and let me know your predictions down below in the comments as I go through these game by game. Let's go ahead and get into the first match, which is Japan versus China at the Saitama Stadium. Now, this is one of my favorite rivalries in all of world football. Now, the rivalry itself is really a tale of two halves. Up until the year 1990, there were 19 fixtures between these two sides. China won 13, drew 3, with only 3 wins for Japan. So pretty much China was just slam dunking on them. However, since the year 1991, around the same time that football was professionalized and the J-League was launched within Japan, there have been 21 games, 2 wins for China, 6 draws, 13 wins for Japan. So the rivalry's pretty much flipped on its head completely. It's been Japanese domination since the 90s. Now, most of those games are EAFF E1 matches, which, if you guys don't know what that is, I don't have time to explain it in this video, but still, I thought it was an interesting stat. Now, in competitive matches, Japan has only lost to China a single time, and that was at the 1975 Asian Cup. It's been a while. Now, these two teams were in the same group for round 3 of 2022, with Japan doing the double over China, beating them last time around 2-0 at the Saitama Stadium. Goals coming from Yuya Asako and Junya Ito, who will be making his return to the Samurai Blue. And I do not want to understate the importance of Junya Ito returning, because if you ask me, he was Japan's best player for the last 18 months. It is not Kaoru Mitoma, it was not Takefusa Kubo, it was not Ayasa Ueda. It was Junya Ito, and I think hands down. And I will forever say that his omission from the Asian Cup is why Japan did not win. Y'all want to get mad at me in the comments? Go ahead. That's just my opinion. But now he is back, and I'm very excited to see how he performs with Japan. Now, Japan have not lost at Saitama in a while, but I think Japan's home form is one of the more interesting things to look at with this national team. They don't really seem to have that invincible fixture, that invincible stadium, I should say. But if there was one for the Japanese national team, it probably is the Saitama, because their last loss was in 2016 against the UAE in World Cup qualifying. Now, if we look at China for a second, in the last cycle during 2022, they did not pick up a single point away from home. And I say away from home because China didn't get to play any games at home. Maybe they played one game at home, but most of them were in Doha in a neutral venue, which if you're already one of the weaker teams in China and you can't even play at home, I mean, they were doomed from the start. But still, to lose all 5 games away, including to Vietnam, not good. This time around, I don't think it's going to be any easier for China, which ultimately meant that they finished round 3 with 6 points. Now, I'm going to ask you guys right now, the audience, to let me know in the comments, does China get more or less than 6 points in 2026? I think I might be taking the under, but I got to give more thought to this. Overall, this China side is poor, man. Really, really poor. In their last 19 games, China has 5 wins. Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, Palestine, and Myanmar. Are you noticing anything consistent with those national teams? Most of them are not good. The best team on there is either Palestine or Thailand, and Thailand did not even make it to round 3. And Palestine, really, they're just happy to be here. This is the big leagues now. You've gone from the championship to the Premier League. Things are about to get a lot harder. And I don't have a lot of confidence in a China that is extremely reliant on Wu Lei to score the goals in 2024. If it's not Wu Lei, then it's Yuning Zhang, who I thought was the worst 9 at the Asian Cup, bar none, and Fernando Coneixao to score the goals. Does that give you a lot of confidence? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. I'm a little scared. Now, China has shown, namely at the Asian Cup, that they know how to bunker down, but that was under a different manager in different circumstances. We're going back to World Cup qualifying. I know Branko Ivankovic, is he the guy? I don't know, but he hasn't kept a clean sheet in his first 4 games in charge of China. And 2 of those games were against Singapore, bro. You going against the Japanese now. So I'll be damned if I'm going to say that they keep a clean sheet at the Saitama Stadium. I'll be blown away. I might have to buy a Chinese national team jersey. Now, my prediction for this game, please let me know your score in the comments. I think I'm going to go Japan either 2-0 or 3-0. I keep going back and forth. And here's the thing. Japan could easily beat them 3-0. But things do tighten up in round 3, and it's the first game in round 3, so I think the confidence for China is going to be at an all-time high. Japan did not run up the score ever in round 3 last time around. Granted, the team is better. That's why I keep oscillating between 2-0 or 3-0. Does Junya Ito even start, or is Moriyasu going to keep him on the bench? I feel like he'll keep him on the bench. I'll say this. Junya Ito starts 3-0. If he's on the bench, 2-0 Japan. Next up, we got Australia versus Bahrain in the Gold Coast, which is Australia, by the way, not Bahrain. In the 6 previous meetings between these two national teams, Australia has won every single game, keeping 5 clean sheets. So they've been dominating. They've been going kangaroo jack on Bahrain. These two teams also played each other in a friendly right before the Asian Cup, and Australia won that one 2-0. Now, Australia is such a fascinating team. I love talking about the Socceroos because their identity and their play style and basically everything about the team is so unique within Asian football. And despite Australian footy being basically frozen and stagnant for like 20 years, they're still a powerhouse. And this current iteration of the Socceroos, like, yes, they got a couple aging players in the squad, but they also got some studs coming up. Last time in 2022, Australia won 4 of their 10 games in round 3. I ask you again, the audience, more or less than 4 wins for Australia in 2026? Let me know down below. I think I'm taking the over this time. I think they're going to get 5. They're just a strong-ass team. Like, there's no other way to describe Australia. Unbelievably annoying to play against. Physical as hell. The strongest team, the tallest team, probably not the fastest. They got a defense like a Roman Testudo. Nobody wants to go to Australia and play. It's not a fun time. Oftentimes, it's not even a fun viewing experience, thanks to Graham Arnold. But still, Australia is legit. I mean, in their last 13 games, they have 11 clean sheets. Like, come on, bro. You really think I'm going to predict Bahrain come in here and get the upset? I don't care if there's no Matthew Leckie and Jordan Boss for this window. I don't think the Socceroos need them to take care of business here. Now, if they had Japan away, it's a different story. I really think the biggest question mark and the biggest narrative to watch with Australia is Graham Arnold. Does he start Yengi in every game like he should? Does he play Irakunda in some of the other young guns? Or does he kind of stick to his favorites? I have no idea. Now, speaking of Bahrain, they're kind of a meddling national team right now. They moved on from Antonio Pizzi after the Asian Cup. They now have Dragan Talicic as their manager, who is coming over from the Bahrain Domestic League. I really don't have much insight into his play style or anything like that. So as far as I'm concerned, this guy's a massive question mark. If you look at their fixtures, the biggest dub that Bahrain has taken recently was against a Jordanian B side at the Asian Cup during the group stage. There is a bit of offensive talent in this team. Ali Madan, Mohamed Marhoun, Al Aswad, but I just don't think that's enough. This is my biggest thing with Bahrain, right? What are they special at? What is Bahrain better at than every other team in Asia? I cannot think of an answer. If you have one, please let me know in the comments. Because to me, they're just average at everything. And I think when you're average at everything and you're going up against a team in Australia that has several superpowers, super abilities, if you will say, I just think it results in a defeat, especially when you're going away from home. I'm going Australia 2, Bahrain 0 in this one. I don't think it's going to be a bloodbath, but I do think Australia are going to dominate possession and whatnot. I'll leave you with a crazy stat here for Australia. In the last 10 years, Australia have 5 losses at home. That is absolutely insane. And those teams are Brazil, Greece, South Korea, Japan, and Ecuador. Only 2 of those games were official matches, by the way. Is Bahrain going to be number 5? I don't think so. Next, we have Saudi Arabia versus Indonesia at the King Abdullah Stadium. Now, this matchup is spicy, man. You got to drop your score predictions in the comments. Please, please, please. Now, last cycle, Saudi Arabia went 5 for 5 at home, beating both Japan and Australia. They do not play games at the King Abdullah. And I'm going to say if they drop points against Indonesia at home, I genuinely think they need to sack Roberto Mancini. Like, nah, bro, I've seen enough. This man is a minnows merchant. If he cannot take care of Indonesia with this Saudi Arabian squad, he's not the guy. I already don't think he's the guy, but this would be an unforgivable loss if it happened, especially considering Saudi Arabia haven't completely owned them historically, winning 12 of their 13 matches and never losing. Now, Indonesia are debutants in round 3, and congratulations to them. But this is the point in the video where I upset about 80% of the viewers by saying I'm not buying into the hype. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Indonesia are ahead of schedule by being in round 3. The goal for Indonesia, in my opinion, is to surpass what Vietnam was able to do in 2022, which is get 4 points. I think a successful round 3, like a really good round 3 for Indonesia, is either 7 or 8 points. Not only are you doing better than Vietnam last window, you're doing better than China as well. And you will probably be doing better than teams like Kuwait in Group B. Like, that's a massive dub for Indonesia. If Shin Tae-yong, who's my guy, by the way, I love him, if he can get Indonesia to that 3rd or 4th spot in this group, I mean, genuinely lifetime contract. I know he just signed an extension. Extend it again. Extend it again, brother, till 2045, because it ain't going to get any better than that. I think Indonesians are rightfully very excited about this team, but y'all are so raw. You look at the Saudis, they're like the opposite of that. I feel like their entire team is pretty established. They have a couple young guys coming up, but not many. Like, the Saudis have been around the block a few times. The Indonesians are like kids, basically. They're either children or guys who were nationalized 2 days ago. Like, Shin Tae-yong just isn't playing with the same pieces that Roberto Mancini is. Like, I think it's okay to be both excited about Indonesia and also admit they're probably not going to win many games here. Just look at the attack for a second. Guys like Rafael Struijk, very, very raw. 12 games, no goals for the senior team. Honestly, the U23s looks like his level. Marcelino, God, his hype is insane. 3 goals in 26 games, including a tap-in against Iraq. I'm sorry, it is what it is. Like, he's just not ready. He's 19 years old. The dude Ragnar, he's got, 3 games for Indonesia? Like, we don't know what to expect yet. He looked pretty good against the Philippines, but everybody looked pretty good against the Philippines. I don't know how to assess this team. What I do know is that it's been a long time since Indonesia beat a really good national team. Like, genuinely, who was the last Asian giant that Indonesia beat in a match, much less away from home? The defense is also abysmal. I mean, they cannot keep a clean sheet against any team not named Vietnam. And that's my final point with Indonesia, is they have become the kings of Southeast Asia. I think Thailand is closely behind them, but Thailand did not make it to round 3. But you're not playing Southeast Asia anymore, bro. Indonesia's last 5 wins against non-Southeast Asian teams, going back to 2022, they have 5 wins in total. Curaçao, Burundi, Turkmenistan, Kuwait, and Nepal. Teams of that caliber are long gone. This is Saudi Arabia now. The Saudis can't score. Indonesia can't defend. What is the scoreline going to be? I think I'm going to go Saudi Arabia 2, Indonesia nothing here. I wanted to say Saudi Arabia 3, Indonesia nothing, but I was looking at this stat, and this is insane. Since 2022, Saudi Arabia have scored more than 2 goals twice. Both of those times, it was against Pakistan. Like, nah, bro. That is one of the craziest stats that I found while I was researching for this video. You can't score more than 2 goals against anybody, dude. Pakistan are finished. Like, they don't even count. For an Asian powerhouse, that is embarrassing. You know what? I'm going to change my official prediction. I am going to say Saudi Arabia 3-0. I'm challenging Mancini. You got to make it work, dude. You got to get out the door. I've seen enough. Moving on to match week 2, we have Japan versus Bahrain in Rifa. A rematch of the round of 16 game recently that Japan won 3-1. Now, I actually think this is a very, very tricky match. Japan has never beaten Bahrain in Rifa. They've only played 2 times there, but Bahrain have won both of those games. And if you look at the history between these 2 teams, it's usually a very, very close game. I don't necessarily think Bahrain away is that difficult of a fixture. I mean, the UAE did just go there and beat them 2-0 recently, and I think the UAE are on the way down, to put it nicely. But I still think Bahrain are going to keep it tight. I think they're going to play a 4-4-2. I think they're going to be super annoying, and I think if Japan score early, they run it up. If Bahrain can get to halftime with a 0-0 or maybe try to nick a goal somewhere, then I think this game gets really ugly. I don't mean ugly like Bahrain are going to run it up. I mean ugly like you shouldn't watch the second half. Because the amount of flopping and rolling on the ground, time wasting, and just clearances over and over again is not going to be a good viewing experience. I think I'm going to go Japan 1, Bahrain 0. At most, I think Japan scored 2 here. Knowing Moriyasu, he'll probably rotate the squad insanely for this match as well. And Japan only scored 12 goals in 10 games in round 3 last World Cup qualifying. I already have them scoring, 3 in the first game against China. I don't think they're going to score 3 again. If they do, that's amazing. I just don't think they will. Next up, we have China versus Saudi Arabia in China, and I am very, very excited for this game. And I have no idea why. There's just something about China playing Saudi Arabia at home. Maybe it's because I think China has a slight chance. If you look at the history between these 2 teams in the last 5 games, it's been pretty even. 2 wins for Saudi Arabia, 2 draws, and 1 win for China, which is pretty surprising given China have been on the way down for like 20 to 15 years now. But it seems like China might be one of those annoying teams for the Saudis. I said it earlier, but in 2022, China were not able to play games at home due to the pandemic, so this was played in Abu Dhabi, I want to say, and it was a 1-1 draw. Even more interesting was at the King Abdullah, Saudi Arabia won the game, but they did so 3-2. China probably gave them one of the biggest scares at home that they had during the entire cycle, which again is kind of funny because China are very close to finished. For me, this fixture is all about breaking China down. Ivankovic knows what time it is. He knows if he has any prayer of finishing 3rd or 4th in this group, it's got to be clean sheets and it's got to be taking care of business at home. Now, I think that's going to be rather difficult because I don't think China have the midfield or the personnel offensively to get those types of results. I said it earlier, and I will say it again, in their last 4 games, they have 0 clean sheets against rather poor opposition outside of South Korea. However, to make a bull argument, you could say they only conceded 1 goal against Thailand and South Korea. Was that due to Thailand not being able to hit the broadside of a barn? Was it due to historical performances from the Chinese goalkeeper? Was it due to the fact that Korea didn't really care because they had pretty much dog-walked their group to that point? I don't know. If China's going to have any prayer of doing anything in round 3, they got to get some good results and a very, very tough opening to round 3. Is there a harder opening schedule than China? I mean, Japan away and then Saudi Arabia at home? I mean, good Lord, RIP to the People's Republic. If China score in this game, it's definitely a set piece, and China are surprisingly very dangerous from set pieces. They got some big players in that team. But from open play, I just don't see it. Saudi Arabia are going to dominate the ball here. I do not think Ivankovic wants to go band for band with the Saudis in open play. But can they score? Saudi Arabia are the definition of wasteful, and they don't really have a killer 9. You kind of wonder if Saudi Arabia's very difficult schedule recently in round 2, where they easily had the hardest group with Tajikistan and Jordan, will that make an opponent like China seem much more feasible for them? Because I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that Tajikistan and Jordan are better than China. So Saudi Arabia are literally getting easier opponents in Indonesia and China to start round 3. They're either going to be sharpened by their previous matches and kill both of these teams, or they're going to disrespect them and maybe even drop points. And drop points, I think they will do. I think we're either looking at a 0-0 or a 1-1 draw in this game. Roberto Mancini has been such a fraud with Saudi Arabia that I cannot bet anything else. Now, Saudi Arabia should win, and they should win 1-0. But I don't know if they will. Let me know in the comments. And lastly, we have Indonesia versus Australia in Jakarta, which I think is a potentially juicy revenge game. A revenge game for the 4-0 defeat that Australia handed the Indonesians in the round of 16 at the Asian Cup. A game which was actually somewhat even until Indonesia just kind of collapsed. But Indonesia always kind of collapse. That's what they do, especially against good teams. And Australia are a very good team. I don't know what I need to say about this game. Like, I could talk about the records, right? I could say that Indonesia has 1 win in the last 10 matches against Australia. That was like 20 years ago, and Australia have won 8. I could reference the 4-0 beatdown at the Asian Cup. I could talk about the fact that in 50 games in charge of the Socceroos, Graham Arnold has never, ever dropped points against a opponent at the power level of Indonesia. I could talk about the fact that Australia is literally Southeast Asia's daddy, and that is not hyperbolic. They completely own the region. And that's not even a diss to Indonesia or to Vietnam or to Thailand. Like, Australia should be owning that region because Southeast Asia, although it's improving a lot, is not the strongest area. I think currently Indonesia and Thailand are kind of like the beacons of hope, but they're not ready for a team like Australia. Even a draw here at home, I think if it's not Shin Tae-yong's best achievement as Indonesia manager, maybe you could say beating Vietnam at the Asian Cup is his biggest win or biggest result, and granted, I'll give you that. I think a draw against Australia here would instantly become top 2. And I think people would be looking at Graham Arnold and being like, I think it's time we move on. Even though I think Arnold's job is safe, I don't think he's getting sacked anytime soon. I really need to see Indonesia keep some clean sheets and play 90 minutes of good football against good teams, right? Like, I remember Iraq 2-0, where Indonesia were the better side in the first half. But they ultimately collapsed and they lost the game. Indonesia doesn't keep clean sheets against good teams. Australia, while they're kind of stereotypically a low-scoring side, they have shown recently against Palestine, Lebanon, that they will put 5 past you if you let them. My official prediction, I think I'm going to go Australia 2, Indonesia. Do they get a goal? Does Indonesia get a goal? A goal would be massive. Even that is insane. Do the Indonesians get up in front of their home crowd? I think they do, but I don't think they can park the bus effectively. Like, they're going to try. I just think that the Australians got the keys. Oh, it's a lot. This one's difficult. I'm sticking with it. You guys let me know your thoughts down below, how you see this game and all the others playing out. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure again to smash the like button and to hit subscribe, because I will be doing a recap of all of the World Cup qualifiers. I'm going to try to do live streams for some of these games, so follow us on Twitter. Social media links in the description of this video. And if you're listening on streaming platforms, please give the podcast a 5-star rating. I think Group C is a beautiful group. I think it's going to be very exciting to see how the power levels have changed from now to 4 years ago. How does Indonesia do compared to Vietnam? Does China have more to offer? Are Bahrain just there? Do they even have the potential of upsetting somebody? Who's going to win the group? I think the easy money is Japan, but can the Saudis shut me up and do it themselves? Will Australia go undefeated? I have no idea. We're going to find out. I'll see you guys in the next episode.